You are listening to the Wi-Fi Ninjas podcast, where we talk about wireless technology. Here are your hosts, Mac Daring and Matt Starling.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Wi-Fi Ninjas podcast. Matt and Mac here, but today we're also joined with two of our very good friends from the Cubicon wireless sensors, Marco and Nicola. How are you, Marco?
Hello. Hi, Matt. Hi, Mac. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. You?
Very good, thank you for asking. Nicola, how about yourself?
Good, mate. Very good, thanks.
Good. And Mac, how are you?
As always, never better. Thank you very much. So guys, welcome to the show. And it's a massive privilege for us to have you here. Thank you very much for donating your time.
Finally.
Yeah. It's not like it's taken us like 1.5 years to arrange for this podcast, maybe a little bit more. But finally, we are all here. Your platform is really solid now. We've seen it growing since the beginning, really. And now we're using it on a daily basis in our home labs as well. And our minds are absolutely blown. So why won't you just talk about that, how it has all started and what it is?
Mm-hmm. Thanks. First, it's a pleasure being here with you guys. And we are really delighted that we are having a chance to speak with you and to discuss about the whole product with you guys and the audience. The story about Kubicon is actually quite simple. So both Marco and myself are the networking guys and with the experience of 10 years. And I'm sure that the same challenges that we are seeing, probably all other guys are seeing across the globe as well. And when we are talking about specifically about the Wi-Fi monitoring, what we noticed is that on the market today, most of the tools that we can find are actually event-driven, and they're completely reactive, and simply they're either difficult to use or sometimes even too expensive. So Marco and myself actually start thinking how we can create something better and something which will be easier for networking guys to utilize, and it will help to reduce their operational efforts and operational overhead, basically. So what is the main conclusion is that on the market at the moment, there is not a lot of tools that fit the purpose of proactive monitoring of gaining the visibility about end user experience. So what we did, basically, we troubleshooted, and we created a Cubicon to be easy to use, easy to install, intuitive as it can be, with the main goal that we always want to focus and present the problem in short as possible time. So basically, and I will show you that on the demo as well, when you log into our dashboard, you will see the issue in a second, basically. And that's exactly where we are always going to invest our time and constantly develop our product to be exactly like that in how it is today, to be in the future as well. I don't know, Marco, would you like to add something on this one?
No, I think, that's a kind of a good introduction. So in terms of our product, which is sensor-based Wi-Fi monitoring tool from user perspective, basically. Yeah.
And also, okay, you know a little bit about Wi-Fi as well, don't you, since you're a CCIE wireless?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that's true.
How long have you been a CCIE for?
6 years now. So like from 2014. So 6 years.
Expired by now.
Well, it would be if I hadn't renewed it. So it's active. It's in the active status. Yeah. So it's 6 years. So hopefully it will last for some more time.
Nice. And so both of you guys originally from Serbia, and now Marco, you're in the UK, and then Nicola, I know you're over in Dubai currently.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yeah.
Exactly. Team is quite distributed across the globe, so we adopted this work from home, remote work, quite easy and quite earlier actually. So as you said, I'm in Dubai, Marco is in London, and we have a team of developers across the globe, but to be honest, mainly focused and mainly sitting in Serbia.
Yeah, and I remember a few years ago when I first joined Natilic, I remember my first week, Marco came and met me with one of your original sensors when it was just first, things were just kicking off, and I've had it up at home running since, and it saved our nuts a few times with reporting for when our website has gone down a few times due to our hosting providers server going down. So we get an alert from Cubicon, tells us, oh, your Wi-Fi Ninja service is experiencing not what you would expect. And then I check, I'm like, Mac, website's down. What's going on?
Not only that, also we were being notified when the website was getting slower due to migration on Google hosting platform. So it was either down or getting slow. So we had alerts for both thresholds, which was amazing because like it was happening in the middle of the night for us, which is in the middle of a day for people on the other side of the globe. Without that, it might have taken us a day or at least few hours to realize that the website is down. So it's great. Matthew, you said that you have the Cubicon sensor in your lab since the beginning. Is it still the same hardware?
Yeah, I still got the original one.
Okay, so maybe let's start with that. What hardware does a Cubicon run on? What is the form factor?
So at the moment, it's the hardware itself. It's a Raspberry Pi. It's running on the Raspberry Pi with our software on top of it. And also it connects to our cloud platform. So that's kind of our solution, sensor and the cloud. So, but when we talk, sorry.
Do you have any specific wireless NICs that are just crafted to be a sensor, or is it just a NIC that comes with the Raspberry Pi? What are the capabilities of your system?
Yeah, it's integrated NIC. It's .11 AC with one spatial stream, one receive, one send antenna. With one spatial stream. So .11 AC. Yes.
Okay, so this is pretty much like the worst case scenario. If the sensor is happy, then more robust devices, expensive mobile phones and bigger laptops, they will most likely be even happier.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we wanted to cover the worst case scenario, because you always need to account for the mobile devices, which are not really quite performant, quite sensitive when it comes to the Wi-Fi chipset, like maybe some high-end products like laptops, etc. And you guys know as well, whenever you do, for instance, like a site survey, you need to take into an account offset for mobile devices, just to account for like just less performant antennas and things like that.
Yeah, so just sensitivity. And how do you power up your sensor? Do you connect it to the wall, or does it power from the USB perhaps?
So the sensor leverages PoE. That's one and probably recommended option to use. Additionally, if PoE is not available on site on premise, then you can use local power supply.
Okay, and what is the power needs from the PoE?
To be honest, I don't know that from the top of my head, but it uses.
I can't imagine it's going to be too much. 18.
Yeah, exactly. So it uses standard PoE.
Okay, so it's not like 30 watts or 60 watts or anything crazy, like 15.4 tops.
Yeah, absolute tops, I'd say.
So the whole idea of this sensor basically is, it's quite a small box, as you know. Raspberry Pi is a small one. It's very beautifully packed, or we believe actually that it's very beautifully packed, to be honest.
I agree. I think it looks lovely.
Thanks.
The fact that I've managed to have it sitting on top of my TV cabinet without the wife complaining that it looks ugly, that's a win.
Great to hear. But that's exactly basically what we were streaming towards, is to have a small device that we can place anywhere in the environment, that it will not be intrusive, it will be beautiful, and it will pick up exactly how user experience is in that specific area of the environment. So as I don't need to tell you guys, it's not a box that you want to hide in the ceiling or something like that. It will be positioned where exactly you want to see what people are doing, or in the meaning like what is their experience. And that's the reason it has to be small, it has to be nice. So you can put it on the C-level executive desk if it's required, or in the kitchen or anywhere else, as you said, near the TV, whichever works basically. And we really put quite a lot of effort in creating that whole case, the logos and everything, to be attractive visually.
Yeah, and the whole idea of your sensor is to test the wireless network from the perspective of a client. So you really want to install it where your clients are going to be using it. So if you're in an office, you want to put it next to where the laptops are, or in a meeting room where there's a conference video call sensor thing, whatever it is there, you want to place that there so you can get the telemetry from how that's going to be performing. So it's very nice.
Exactly.
That leads to another question. what is the ratio of a sensor to the access point, or is that a stupid question? How many sensors do you need when you are covering like a standard enterprise space?
Yeah, it's not a stupid question, but it is a common question that we get. And kind of our approach is that you don't really need to consider the APs. You shouldn't look at that way, but you need to focus on the area where you want to proactively test Wi-Fi. So as Matt said, there might be like a meeting room, and the meeting room can be covered by 1 or 5 access points. But then the sensor is supposed to tell you if there are any issues with that, if there is like a lot of cell overlap there, or is there a lot of interference caused by these multiple access points. So as I said, our approach is to focus on the area where you want to test the Wi-Fi, regardless of the number of the access points.
Okay, and that's great, but that's like leads me. Oh, go on, Nicola. I wanted to say something there.
Yes, thanks. Basically, the idea is, as Marco said, the whole product is built to give you the end user experience. So where our customers are usually positioning our sensors is C-level executive offices, the meeting rooms, conference halls, wherever it makes sense for them to test and see classrooms, whatever works. Basically, it very rarely is 1-to-1 ratio between access point and sensor. Simply you put it where exactly it is important for you to know what is the experience in that specific area of the environment.
Perfect. And how does it work? Does the sensor connect to the access point serving clients? It makes its own decision about which access point to associate to, and then it runs some tests. How does it work? What tests are available for us?
That is correct. So once plugged into your network, the sensor will automatically establish secure SSL connectivity to our cloud. And our cloud platform, as I said, is a place where you manage your sensors and configure your sensors in order to monitor your network. So the sensor itself will be another wireless client connected to the access point, and will run a number of tests, which again are configurable on the dashboard.
Okay, so what exactly can we run? Can we configure? What are the tests available?
So available tests are wireless-related tests like signal strength, MCS rates, frequencies, etc. Then we also have network infrastructure tests. These cover DHCP performance, DNS stuff. Also have YouTube video performance. And YouTube is actually one of our synthetic application tests, as together with the wireless related tests and network infrastructure tests, which will Nicola show you in detail a bit later, we also have synthetic application tests covering testing things like YouTube, like Dropbox, like you'll see in addition to that also like a web-based applications, so which are fully configurable.
And whatever we do, maybe I can add on top of this one, whatever we do, again, I am constantly emphasizing this. We always try to mimic exactly what the end user will do. So for example, if we are testing a web application, it's not some kind of curl command or, just script that will, ping the web page, see GET requests and okay, finish, that works. It's actually quite opposite of that. We actually mimic the opening of the page, how much time does it take to open, what are challenges, and so on and so on. Even for YouTube, how much time does it take to stream the video, and we really try to put a lot of thinking in what exactly our user is doing. So if we are testing a DHCP server, it's never going to be just a ping and okay, the DHCP server is up. It's actually a full communication. How much time does it take to us to get the IP address and so on and so on. I hope that this makes sense and just puts a little bit more context into the tests.
So I would also, maybe just like to add, we also do support Mac randomization.
Oh, I know about that.
You learned it, the hard way. Like a Mac randomization, also Captive Portal testing as well, for end-to-end Captive Portal testings.
Yeah, which I have tested out fully. I spun up a captive portal in my home environment using Mist, and I was able to send you over the HTML code, and then you was able to add that to the sensor, and was able to test logging on using a captive portal. So we can test how well the captive portal works, how long it takes to load. Our user is able to authenticate, which is really nice. So so let's talk about the authentication methods that you support. So open with captive web portal. You do obviously a pre-shared key.
Pre-shared key .1x for now. At this very moment, we do have we support PEEP, MFCHAP, but we will be introducing very soon IPTLS and IPTLS as well.
Very nice. So if I wanted to use that, how hard is that for me to configure on my dashboard?
We will demonstrate that, but it should be very, very sleek and very quick to configure that. Yeah. And that is one of the things that kind of a usability is one of our pillars of our solution, our Cubicon. So is that we really wanted to develop like a proper plug and play solution, which would be very easy to set up, very, very easy to use, and which would be also bundled with attractive subscription plans for our users.
Yeah, one feedback that I had for you guys is just how nice and sleek I find the dashboard. I really like the way it looks. It's very intuitive, it's clean, it's very easy to see what's going on with the network. If you're not a CWNE or a CCIE or even have much wireless experience, you could easily get someone to deploy these sensors for you. You can log on to your dashboard. You can see some very nice easy widgets that tell you in a traffic light system, red, amber, green, how is my network looking, what sensors are having issues, what SSIDs are having issues, why they're having issues, and what time they're having issues. You can run custom reports as well.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So how long do these, how far back do these reports go? Can I run it for 1 day, 1 hour, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 1 year?
You can go up to 30 days, basically. That's the limitation that we are having today. And every user can choose. There are a couple of options, but the data retention period in cloud is 30 days.
Perfect.
It's still plenty of time. One more question, I think, from the top of my head.
Please.
Do we have access to some kind of wireless captures, or is it just the practical tests from user perspective?
So not at the moment. We don't do packet captures right now. So that is one of the things we are considering, but just we don't have support right now for that, for the packet captures.
So let's say when we are troubleshooting the DHCP issue, we will see in a threshold that it has exceeded the threshold of, I don't know, 1 second. It's probably something that we can configure to get the IP address from the time that we wanted to get the IP address. And this is like perfectly practical. We just won't see that in the capture, right? Like which packet was delayed. We don't care about that at this moment. So you are considering adding this functionality in the future that we don't have today yet.
That is correct. But we just want to make sure whenever we add something new, some new features, that it's really fully integrated with our approach, which meaning that needs to be really simple to use and really that it really gives a value. A DHCP test is a good example because we do provide what we do 4-way handshake, getting the IP address from the DHCP server, and we are not just measuring the performance, but we also would notify the user in case the IP address wasn't allocated to the device. So meaning that there is a really critical issue with the DHCP server, and in that case, you wouldn't need to look in the numbers, but you would really get a notification like a IP address hasn't been allocated. DHCP failed to allocate an IP address to the sensor.
Okay, and let's say when you are testing a YouTube video, loading times, what resolution are we loading? Is it just a default resolution? My question comes from the back of, is it getting a lot of the airtime while doing this test? Does it affect the airtime available to users to use in a Wi-Fi space?
That's actually a great question. So it will load the resolution, and the quality of the video, based on what YouTube suggests you. So basically, same as you're doing, again, always it will be on the how exactly the end user behaves. So if you open on your laptop the YouTube, exactly the resolution that you're getting on the same place in the network would be the same resolution, the quality of the video that sensor will have just next to you. So that is also one of the ways how we emulate exactly what the end user is doing. Did I answer your question? Does that make sense?
Not, of course, yeah, you did. Smashingly, thank you.
I have a question.
So, yeah, go on, man.
Just while you're talking about the sensor capabilities, the Raspberry Pi little sensor that it comes with has additional USB ports. Does the Cubicon sensor support external Wi-Fi dongles? Are there any plans to support any extra dongles?
Yeah, that is one of the things why we have chosen the like Raspberry Pi. Among the other things, it is modular and it's easy to add an additional module. Sorry, so it might be tomorrow. It might be Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 6E. So it is configurable, and one of the things that can be easily the capabilities can be easily extended on this platform.
Nice. So let's say if I wanted to be able to get like layer 1 information, so looking at the spectrum, you could potentially plug in a DVX dongle in the future, and then you'd be able to see layer 1 spectrum information.
Exactly.
A Raspberry Pi gives us that flexibility to extend the sensor itself as much as we need and as much as the customer requires. So tomorrow, if we get the request, for example, that we need to put actual sensor inside of the metal ceiling for any reason possible, we can always use the external antenna and so on and so on. It's quite flexible from the hardware point of view, and we are always very keen to support our customers as much as we can with these kind of requests. Just we need to understand the business use case, basically,
and you
how to do it on the proper way.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well that the sensor takes PoE, so that'll be taking power over Ethernet from a switch port. Is the sensor able to read any information coming from the switch and give any telemetry for the LAN side?
I guess so. We do support wired network testing as well. So most of the tests of the probes are available in the wired mode as well. So the sensor can be easily switched from wireless to wired mode and run all these probes. Of course, apart from the wireless related tests, you will get the user, so you will get all these measurements as well.
Can you configure a sensor to run tests on the wired side and then switch to wireless, then go back to wire and do that continuously?
At the moment, you need to manually configure that, but we do have that in plan. So because again, one of the things that I said that we really invested in our effort, a lot of effort in the dashboard and in usability and user experience. But what we also want is to make it even more efficient and to make it more automated. So, and which leads me to the answer to your question is that yes, we plan to do that, and we plan to introduce more and more automation. So that would mean that the sensor would automatically switch from wired and wireless mode in case there are issues if it is testing wireless network, and if there are issues, then it would switch to the wired side and check if they're in the same VLAN, check if the same issues are present there, and then do some cross-reference for you, and ideally just provide you with the report what the sensor think where the issue is.
And I have a sensor here running in my apartment, but if I had another apartment and I wanted to deploy a sensor out or another site, am I able to manage all of these sensors from my one cloud login and just see it by site, or do I have to see the information overall? Like, how do I view that information?
Yeah, sure. So basically, as Marco said, the moment when you deploy the sensor initiates the communication towards the cloud console. And as many sensors as you have, they will all communicate with your cloud console, and all the data will be sitting waiting for you there. Then inside of the console itself, you can even configure the exact location. So Google Maps will show you where exactly the sensor is located. There are ways that you can put a description. So we'll say, okay, that location, meeting room, whatever. And also there is a way where you can tag the sensors. So it will just help you to visually, to have a visual representation of all your sensors and SSID inside of the console slightly more intuitive, let's say. So yes, basically it's one single place from where you can see the whole estate, and from where you can configure the whole all sensors in your network is the cloud console.
Could we use Cubicon for managed services for multi-tenant environments?
Yes, exactly. That's one of the reasons why we introduced the tags. So many of our customers are actually MSPs, and we want to support them as much as we can. Basically, what the idea is that users will be able to utilize the tags, and then there will be a multi-tenancy system which will say, okay, this tag belongs to this user, that tag belongs to this user, and one super user who will be overlooking all the deployed sensors. So on that way, everyone are happy. The end user is actually having the visibility across that specific and their specific environment, but also MSP can actually see all the sensors across all the environments and have a single pane of glass for everything which is deployed.
That answers the question. Thank you. One more question, like coming back to the tests. Can we adjust the frequency of tests? So let's say, how many tests does the sensor run? What is the maximum number of different tests that the sensor runs? Is it one after the other? So the sensor like connects to the access point, runs like 10 tests, then disconnects or stays connected? Or how does it work? When does it connect back to run more tests? What is the threshold? How do we configure it?
So the tests are usually run at the moment are run on 5 minutes. So we do support multiple SIDs per one sensor. So basically we have ability to do SID hopping and test and run tests across multiple SIDs.
How many SSIDs?
Well, we recommend up to 3. So no more than 3, because it will be sort of a time sharing. So it will do one, then jump to another, and so on. So you would like to have that frequency, like something which is usable. So going back to the first one, between the first test on the first SID and the next one, you don't want to be maybe an hour. So that's why, having said that, it's like a 5 minute. The frequency is 5 minutes, and yeah, we do support that SID hopping. When it comes to the config,
sorry, Marco, just one more question in regards to the testing of the SID and the wireless. If I have a customer that's deployed a network and they're using 80 megahertz wide channels on 5 gig, is the sensor able to test that as well? Because I believe the maximum channel width the sensor can do is 40 megahertz.
So it should support 80 megahertz as well. It should have a .11 AC or .11 AC capabilities.
Okay. I mean, I imagine it would still be able to gather most of the information because it can capture on the primary channel from the wide channel. So having a wider channel shouldn't cause an issue for the sensor to capture that information.
That is correct, yes.
By the way, maybe just to put a small note on the frequency of the tests. Yeah. So when we think about the testing of the environment itself, all of us are basically playing with 1 or 2 sensors in the network. And then when we say 5, 6, 10 minutes, whatever the frequency is, actually it maybe looks a lot. But the issue is, think about the environments which is having 20, 30 sensors. And each of them is actually doing a test, and all that data is gathered. So when we were creating the frequency and configuring the frequency of the test, we were quite thoughtful that we don't want to DDoS our own network. So we found out by speaking with the customers as well and gathering their inputs is what is that sweet spot of comfort level, basically how much we can test, and don't want to be very intrusive on the network as well. So we came to the conclusion that is at anything between 5 and 10, and that's exactly what is configured today.
It makes perfect sense. But what if you have like this one extremely important service for the business, like a website availability for e-commerce? Can you configure it to be constantly monitoring the life of the website over wireless, and that's it, nothing else?
That's why we are introducing that configurable frequency of the test and selectable test. So, I mean, I don't like to say soon, but we expect that to be available maybe in like a few weeks, that ability to select the frequency between the SIDs and between the SID tests, and to be able to select which tests and probes you want to run on specific SID. So if you want only to run constantly just to monitor one URL page or web page, as you said, you would be able to do that. At the moment, as I said, to be honest, at the moment we do like all these configured tests will run on the SIDs.
And again, Mac, so if you have one, it will be on each 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 5 minutes. If you have 10 of them, it will be actually much more often because each of them is doing the test parallel. Having in mind that you will not plug them in the same time, or apologies, in the same time, basically it will come if you have 10 sensors, basically on every 30 seconds, someone will be pinging the desired web application.
Okay, so if I have two sensors associated to two different access points into different sides of my building, can I assume that both sensors, they will load balance between their tests, so they will run like every 2.5 minutes? Or is it like dependent on when we plug them into the network, so they start running the tests starting at that time?
Look, it will not load balance, and the reason why it's not load balance is because I hope you don't get offended, but it doesn't make a lot of sense from my perspective to load balancing, because what is happening in one part of the building and what's happening in the second part of the building is completely independent. For you want to understand what exactly is happening here or there. So I don't want to say you do it at this time and you do it at that time. I want to
what I really mean is if you have these two sensors and they are both capturing the as-is information of their own Wi-Fi environment, they are also capable of monitoring external services like your website, for example, right?
Correct.
So they check the availability of the website and the speed that you can load up this website with a sensor.
Yes.
Each sensor will do it every 5 minutes. But if I have two sensors, it means that I will have one sensor run at, let's say, 10 o'clock. Then another sensor will run at 10 o'clock, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Then first one back to 10:05. And the second one, 10:07:30, and so on. Or it will be like both, they will run at 10 and then both they will run at 10:05. How does that work?
So first we need to take a whiteboard and put the statistics. No, I'm just joking with you. But basically, it will not be load balance. It will run on the X number of minutes after if it's booted as a system. And I don't believe that we are going to change that behavior because, yes, testing the external services is extremely important part for us, but as internal as well. But it's not the only test that we do, and we need to be careful again not to be too intrusive to the whole environment. And also, for us, each sensor is a segregated unit inside of the environment where we want to put our focus as well. So what I want to say is, if we have a customer who is having a sensor in C-level room, or in dining area, both of those are extremely important for our customers. So we don't want to load balance anything. We want to have as much data here and there and just leave it like that.
And wireless guys, listen up. I know the two key metrics that all wireless guys want to look at when they're looking at the performance of a wireless network: packet retries and MCS rates. And if you're a poor Windows user, it's very hard to see that information very easily. But if you have a Cubicon sensor, you can just log into your dashboard, click on the dashboard, click on the wireless tab, and gosh, right there, you can see packet retries and MCS rate, which, you know, any Wi-Fi guy wants to be able to see that information very quickly to get an idea of how the actual wireless is performing.
Exactly. Yeah, we know how MCS rate shifting is important for the overall performance. That's why we introduced that test, that probe as well.
Well done, you guys, because I know I think it was there in the beginning, and then it was a feature that you added.
Yeah, exactly. And that's of course not the only features which we added since the first release. So you will notice that we are trying to add new features really constantly, and whenever we can, whenever we come up with an idea, when we get a feedback from users, we would try to develop a feature, try to fully test it, and then publish it. So I think that's also one of the things that we like to say about us is that the kind of a flexibility and being able to be agile as well with when it comes to the relationship with our customers. So we are lightweight but well-oiled organization. So and that allows us really to fairly quickly test and publish new things, new features.
I have to say I completely agree with that, because after we had the sensor for a little while, me and Mac played around with it, looked at the dashboard, gave you some feedback, and then in a short amount of time, suddenly all of those feature requests that we had recommended or we thought might add some good value to Cubicon, they were suddenly in the dashboard. So that was
absolutely. That's because we do expect, but we are thankful for the users when they provide a feedback to us or a wish list to us, because that's we really do rely on that to shape our product, because at the end of the day, it's going to be our customers, partners who will actually leverage this solution for their purpose.
And where are some of your users? Because obviously we're in the UK, Nicola over in Dubai. I know that recently you shipped some sensors over out to Australia, and you've done a webinar for a Australian company over there. So can you give us like an idea of how many countries now have Cubicon supporting their wireless networks, and where would you ship to? Anywhere that you wouldn't ship to? Because we have listeners across the whole world, I'm sure, are now dying to get their hands on a Cubicon sensor. So they wanna know, who do I reach out to? How do I get one? Can I get one?
So we are developing partner channel, and we are working with resellers and distributors across the world. Anyone can really reach out to us, and we would then point them to our reseller or distributor in the local area. So, but we try to expand that distributor network across the world, really.
How do people reach out to you, Marco?
You can reach us on through our website, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. So it's a Kubicon.io. Also, we are also present, as I said, on Twitter and on LinkedIn.
Yeah, we'll make sure we tag all of your social profiles in your website. I don't know about you, Mac, but I am dying to see a demo of the Cubicon sensor and the dashboard now. Would now be a good time to share your screen and then give our users a nice visual representation of how the Cubicon sensor looks and works and feels?
Absolutely. I was completely dying to see the dashboard now, but for the last month.
So if anyone's listening to us audio only, we are recording the video of the podcast as well. So head over to our website or our YouTube, and you will now be able to see the sensor in action, the Cubicon dashboard. But also, if you are still listening, don't switch off, because Nicola will talk you through what he's seeing and what he's doing as if you are blind and cannot see the screen.
Sure. So, and just to put a small note on your question about the number of countries. So I just want to say that we are extremely proud. We are at this moment present on 5 continents, and we have many customers in North America, South America, Australia, Asia, obviously, and Australia as well.
So that's a quick question here for people that are not too good with geography. How many continents are there in the world?
7 per Serbian schooling system.
And you are present on 5. Well done.
Yeah. So we are conquering Antarctica hopefully soon. Anyway, so what you see today and right now when I share the screen is basically
that
the
actually
dashboard.
Prompted me for another question I thought to ask you.
Sure.
Is there a temperature threshold that the sensor would and wouldn't work at? If it's obviously in Dubai, it's going to be very hot, but if you were to ship to Antarctica, would it be able to, what temperature can it go down to? Or
one more question here, very related. How about the humidity? Would it work in the UK where it rains all the time?
You know what? We're going to send you our data sheet so you can have a look about that. But so jokes aside, it works in a regular environments from 0 up to 40 degrees. With the humidity, I believe it's around. I would need to check that just to avoid being silly. But yeah, I will check about humidity, the exact values.
In general, the sensors are built for the normal IT environments. So if we have a customer, exactly, if we have a customer who needs to use our sensor in rigged environments or OT environments, that is definitely something that we can support, but simply we need to understand what kind of environment it is, and what kind of casing we need to utilize for that specific environment. And that is something that we did before we evaluated those. So we just need to understand, and basically every our customer is our partner, and we always put the extra effort to understand what exactly they would like to achieve and how we can support them on the best possible way.
Thank you. And now we can see the dashboard.
Thanks. This is basically the dashboard of Cubicon, and as you said, it looks like a traffic signal. Let me walk you through basically the stuff. I will start from above to bottom. On the first pie charts here, we see how many total networks or SSIDs we are monitoring at the moment. What is the total number of sensors and their status, are they up or down, and then we have a license information as well. When we look forward, below, these settings here are the tags, which I'm going to talk slightly later, and then we have the SSIDs that we are monitoring on this one sensor. So the name of the sensor is meeting room sensor basically, and that sensor is monitoring parallelly for different networks, basically hopping between them and gathering the information and sending to the cloud. Now the question here that we see, let me actually say that there is another sensor as well. This sensor is in wired mode, and I will talk about this slightly later. Let me first explain here what is happening is we see three colors, and that is exactly that attention to details that I was mentioning at the beginning, where I said that we want to point the problem exactly in the same second when you log into the console. So how it works is if something is red, means problem, focus your attention there. Then you focus your attention on amber, which basically means something is wrong, but you're still okay. And green, everything is nice and peachy and you're completely fine. Prioritization of these four SSIDs here and these four squares is exactly going as I mentioned. So always when something becomes red, goes left, then all the reds, then it will be all the ambers, and then on the end it will be all the green ones. Again, the whole idea, log in, see exactly the problem. So for example, on this specific network, what we are seeing is that this sensor on this specific SSID cannot reach to the internet, and as a consequences, but the root cause why it cannot reach is basically the DHCP server is failing to allocate the IP address. So simply, something is happening with the DHCP server, and you can't get the IP. When you're using a testing solution like that, yes, definitely we will tell you that something is wrong, but just by thinking about the whole problem, very often you will reach much farther than what we were aiming for. For example, let's say that you remember that I was mentioning that we can test the CAPTI portal. So if we can't log into the CAPTI portal, yes, we are testing only the CAPTI portal, but if we can't get through the CAPTI portal, it can mean that the web page is down. It can mean that your radio server or Active Directory in backend is down. It can mean that maybe your SMS gateway in backend is down. So, something which, yes, definitely CAPTI portal doesn't work, but there's so many stuff in the backend which is supporting that specific application can go wrong. And this is exactly the place where you can actually have a visibility that, or have a hint, what could it be? There was a situation. I always like to talk about this situation. I was on one airport here in the Middle East, and while I was sitting on the airport itself, the signal was amazing, and I opened the wireless setting, the CAPTI portal. There was a place where I should put my phone number, and I did, but I never got the SMS. So the problem with that approach is, although the networking guys thinks that everything is nice and peachy and the signal is amazing, frequency are well done, no overlapping channels, and so on and so on. The actual user experience is that no one in that network can actually connect to the Wi-Fi, and that's exactly the problem. Sorry, to come back to the dashboard itself. I'm just slightly chatty. First SSID here that I was pointing out is having, for example, a problem to get the IP address from the HTTP server. Another SSID here is actually having a problem to get the speed, upload and download speed from the internet, which usually means that either we are having a web proxy or next generation firewall who is cutting some kind of traffic. And that can be a hint that something else is blocked on that specific SSID as well. For example, we can see if we put more applications here that are critical to our business or critical to our users and they're blocked, we will see it here as well.
By here, like what we are looking at on the screen is like we can see Google service, Facebook service, web test service. We also did see YouTube tests as well. So we can configure different things that we can see straight in the dashboard homepage about how they perform.
That's exactly it, Mac. Thanks. Yes. Also, there is a way how we can configure the sensor as well. By utilizing our functionalities, we can resolve most of it's a network issue problems. And how we do that is not only that we can test the web page access, we can actually configure the ping towards certain location. So it just gives you a little bit more information when the application guys are calling and saying that there is a network issue and the web page is down. You can actually with this you can actually prove that if the service which is testing the web page is down, but you're still pinging the server, it's a very clear way. It's not a network issue. Quite a popular functionality with our users and customers, basically. What else we can see here are the wireless tests. Exactly as Marco described on the beginning, we have packet retries, bit rate, signal strength, we are calculating MCS rate, channel width, and so on. So on the beginning, Marco mentioned that when we implement the sensor, we created an encrypted channel towards the cloud. But also it is very important to say that although we are doing our tests over the Wi-Fi, the communication channel towards the cloud is usually going over the wire. And why is that happening? And we will always insist that there is some stable connectivity towards the cloud. The reason is, for example, this case right here, where the Wi-Fi cannot get the IP address, but still we want to notify the administrator that something is wrong. This is the reason that information will be sent over the cable, that something is actually happening on that specific SSID that we are testing. I hope that this makes sense.
Of course, it does. Just a very quick question out of curiosity here. How do you guys calculate the retry rates in Cubicon?
Marco, you are a techie, sir.
Yeah, we get that. Yes, yeah, we get that data directly from the network interface.
Okay, so you track how many packets you send and how many unique packets you get the acknowledgements for. Yeah.
We should. So the goal is the next step would be to make this value as a percentage of the overall packets. So just to be more intuitive to our users, just to say how many, what is the percentage of packets which were retried. So at the moment we have the number.
Yeah, that's still amazing number to see. Do we have capabilities to see number of associated clients and channel utilization that the Cubicon sensor is connected to from the CubeSS element of the packet?
So the reason we haven't implemented that yet is that information would be available, would be broadcasted from the access points and on the SID basically. And sometimes that information would be present about the number of clients and channel utilization. So we haven't still implemented that, as I said, it because we wanted to keep this consistent. And in that case, we wouldn't be able to provide this value from our sensor, but we will have to rely on the information in the broadcast SIDs to.
And not necessarily everyone would understand that. Basically, if you was reporting on that, it would be from the access point perspective, not from the Cubicon sensor. So this information that we see here is purely how the client side is seeing it, rather than reading the information from the access point and reporting on how the access point is.
Not all vendors, they support QBSS, right? They don't provide this information.
Exactly, yeah.
It's okay, cool. Thank you.
No worries.
But one thing just off the top of my head that I just thought of, if you did start supporting that kind of information, what you might be able to feed into the portal is the host name of the access point that the sensor is connected to. So you can say that the meeting room sensor is you're expecting it to be connected into the meeting room access point, but for some reason it might be connected to an access point down the hall, and it could be like a different host name for the AP. So sorry, just to throw in another feature request mid live podcast, but I just come to me and I thought that might be an interesting thing to be able to see in there.
No, you're not the first one. So that's because we have got that request already. At the moment, what we do get BSID. We grab that, so that would basically point you, and you would be able to conclude to which AP you are connected, and you would be able to see actually the Kubicon would tell you even if the sensor jumped from one access point, actually roamed to another access point. So based on this data. So, but having like a friendly host name of the access points on the dashboard is, we agree, it would be a useful feature.
Can't wait to see it.
No pressure. No pressure. Agree. Cool. Then we, for example, if you look at the dashboard and the SSID Cubicon, this specific SSID, everything looks fine. And then there is this nice graph, which we are calling an end user experience graph. Basically, when we see what exactly was happening in the last 12 hours. This graph is very handy in the meaning this graph will have information that you need when your customer is calling you and starts explaining that, this morning something was not working, and they obviously they very usually they will not know what was not working, just Wi-Fi was down or Wi-Fi was not working. This is exactly the place where you can see when exactly was the issue, and then later on in the reports you can actually find what exactly in that moment was having a challenge, or there was no challenge at all, simply customer had a problem with the laptop or a mobile phone, whatever. So this is a very, very fast way for you to know in certain amount of time what exactly was happening. All later on we have, and I will show you that as well, reports and tables where you can see the details, but this is just like in that moment while you're just picking up the phone, go here and see, in this specific time, okay, something was happening or simply nothing was happening, everything was nice and peachy. Let me show you a couple of more functionalities here. So this sensor here is basically showing us that, as I said, one sensor for SSIDs, that is this specific SSID, everything works nicely, and then we are in the wireless mode. If we click on the other tag, we will see that this sensor is in wired mode, and we always encourage our customers actually to put a sensor in wired mode at least for some time, so they will create a baseline of their network. So what exactly is happening? So when they switch to the Wi-Fi, there will not be any surprises.
So Nicola, how do you change your sensor from being in wireless mode to wired mode?
Basically, with everything that you do in Cubicon is in a couple of clicks. You go to devices, you choose the sensor that you want to move, my apologies, and there is a settings, wireless or wired. You click here, wired, okay, and that's it. In a couple of minutes, you will get the first tests from the wired network.
Amazing, nice and simple.
Thanks. When we go back to Dash, let me explain these lines here. Let me actually find something. Okay, that's this one. This one. What these lines are, I always like to explain them as our comfort level in the network. That's exactly why we need a baseline. And the logic is always very easy and simple. Basically, if the test comes back and the result of the testing is actually going above the amber line, your whole SSID will become amber. If it goes above red, it will be red. Simply that those those results will influence changes in the SSIDs here, and it will actually focus your attention when you log into the exact problem that is happening at the moment. When we continue looking at the dashboard, this is the place where I said now how many sensors we have across the world. In this case, in this specific environment, we have only 2. One is Singapore, one is in UK, and then we can zoom in and go, up to the street level if we need, and so on to exactly see where exactly the sensor is located. The good thing again is if we are sitting in a bigger NOC environment, is by looking at the map, it is interactive, and the sensors, as they're changing the colors above, they will be changing on the map itself. So if everything on the map is green, cool. If it's not, let's see what exactly is the challenge and where and how. Any questions, Mac or Matt, maybe about the dashboard, or how does this look like?
No, so when you're looking at the application service now for Google, when we go down to the threshold settings, I believe that is where we can change the different thresholds, and then you would see the different traffic light status for those red lines. So where it's red at the moment, now you've just changed it to the DHC response, so it's 44,500. That is a
Perfect.
Yeah. So if we was to change that in the threshold now to 3,500, that red line would drop down.
Exactly. That's exactly how it works. Correct. The reason why this whole sensor is in amber mode is because we are shooting above the configured warning level, and that's the reason it is amber.
Nice.
And then again, you can see here in user experience, simply if this would be a production environment, we would say you're constantly in the warning state. Either go and see what exactly is happening with DHCP if that is not something that you're comfortable with, or reconfigure your thresholds so you can actually see the moments when you are going above your comfort level.
Is there a like a sensitivity setting that we could configure, so if there was just an unusual spike, for instance, they wouldn't send a notification?
Exactly. Thank you so much for asking that question. Yeah, there is. So in the thresholds, when we choose the thresholds and the settings, we can actually configure the values, but also we can create sensitivity when exactly we want to be notified about the certain challenges in the environment. Some of our customers are actually utilizing this method because we can actually, if we say send notification, we will actually notify our customer via the email that something is wrong, and then specify which exact sensor and which exact network and what exactly happened. When we shoot that email, Sorry, I was
going to say, will it notify only the admin of the site, or can you add emails for, say, the support team as well, or how does it work?
Yeah, everyone who is allocated to this specific environment, as many accounts as you have, will get the notification. And also today or tomorrow, there will be a new release where you will be able to even configure the people who are not specifically allocated to this and don't have an access towards the console to get notified as well. Perfect. Basically configure the list of the emails.
Yeah, because that happened, well, for us, for example, we would deploy a network, and then say we deploy a cloud-based network, then we are obviously the admin on it, but we don't want to be notified if there's support issues. We usually add support at Natilic, for example. So being able to add that into the platform, I think, is very useful.
It's in beta, and today or tomorrow, there is a separate chat, believe it or not, it's just popping here, where the people we have a Q&A testing that. So today or tomorrow, that will be actually in production. And how
I'll add my support engineer to my dashboard, which will be mac@wifininjas.net.
Has he been promoted? What?
Yeah, from a PA.
The handy thing about the notification is actually many TAC systems can actually be triggered by receiving the email. So we have customers who actually configure their ticketing system to open a ticket when they receive an email from us. So if, for example, you're providing Cubicon if you're a service provider and you're providing Cubicon to your customers, basically the easiest way for you to be notified and then to be under your SLA that you have between yourself and your user is basically to integrate that notification in your ticketing system. So when you get it, the ticket will be created, someone will be allocated from your side, and after that, troubleshooting can start. By looking at the dashboard, you will exactly see that.
Just a quick question about something you said before. You said that your new features will be rolled out today or tomorrow. How easy is it to update your sensors to see these features? Do you need to update something on the hardware side, or is it just the feature added to the cloud?
Depends on the feature. Specifically, the feature that we just mentioned is they're only on the cloud. So we always have the maintenance window where we do these kind of releases. But it doesn't matter is it a functionality on the cloud or on the sensor itself. The customer doesn't need to do anything. The sensor itself is actually having a way how it checks what is the latest release and pull that new functionality to the sensor itself. And after it's pulled, you will just see that new functionality just popping up at your dashboard.
So all you need is the internet connectivity to the cloud. That's it.
That is correct.
Right.
So even
do you have
when
to,
you
say if I'm a security guy, do I need to allow any special ports for these sensors to be able to connect back to your cloud?
Well, to be very frank with you, security is always a huge thing for us, having in mind that I do have a special attention to the security. Basically, from the port perspective, you just need to allow 443 towards our cloud console. And it is always from inside to outside, basically. But while we're talking about security, I will just steal a chance and say that we are constantly having a team of pen testers who are validating if the cloud is secure enough. We implemented the two-factor authentication when you're logging into the cloud console. When you create the account on the cloud console as well, we always do specific verification of the user itself. It's not that someone can just create it and get the access. We actually always double check who is the person and from where it's coming from and so on. So we always make sure that the data inside of the cloud console is specifically secure. And also we always like to emphasize that although there is a data that is sitting in our data lakes in the cloud, that data, and I will show you later on through the reports, that data doesn't contain any critical information about the environment itself. The most critical maybe information that we could say is that is the IP address or the subnet that you have inside of the environment, and that's it. There is nothing that can uniquely identify you or any of the of your environments except maybe the internal IP address, and that's it.
That is when it comes to GDPR, right?
Yeah, sorry, and yeah, exactly. And when it comes to GDPR, so our servers are actually in Europe and the UK. So at the moment, that's where the data resides, and we are quite flexible, and we will be expanding these environments further.
Thank you.
Cool.
Maybe just add a little bit. Sorry, yeah. So just one statement that cloud is exclusive interface to our sensor. So everything being configured is on the sensor itself is done through our dashboard. So there's no need to locally access the sensor or do any setup there or any configuration there. It's really from the very beginning, from the unboxing, it's and plugging it to the network and the registering to the cloud. It's really plug and play experience. At least that's what we are trying to do.
To be very frank with you, I was the proudest father of the startup ever when we got in the same week 3 different people, actually customers, told us that they installed the sensor in less than 5 minutes. We truly believe that is quite an achievement. That just means that we did a good job with this plug and play story. Literally, it just takes to plug the sensor into the PoE switch and you will see the sensor on the cloud console.
Yeah, and also I mean, in addition to that, users are, I mean, the dashboard itself, we believe it's self-explanatory. And usually we do provide them with the support for onboarding of the sensor. But most of the times they would set it up on their own and, make it running. So regardless of the technical level and knowledge of our users. So that's also like something that it's really it's showing us that we are I think we are going in good direction.
Absolutely. I think the dashboard is extremely intuitive and easy to follow.
I mean, of course, there are always room for improvements, and hopefully by the time this episode gets published, we will have some facelift on our dashboard introduced as well. So yeah, that's just one of the things. Again, just
the facelift, it doesn't look dated to me.
well, as I said, I mean, we can see the things which we can improve and make better. So even though I mean it's good you say that, because again we try as an organization to be proactive and do things better even before our users actually notice that there might be a need for some change.
Yeah, there are a few types of dashboards. So guys, there is like a Windows 95 type of a dashboard, which
Yes.
most of us are familiar with. There is a Windows Vista type of a dashboard, and there is like a super sleek modern design type of a dashboard. And this is like the sleek, flat HTML5 type of beautiful design. If you don't see it, take my word for it. It's super sleek and nice. Oh, is there dark mode coming?
Yes, there is a constant. So we have a team of developers and UX people who are actually dedicated to work on enhancement of the visual representation of the dashboard. And for weeks now, we are having a debate: do we need a dark mode? Do we not need a dark mode? And the reason for that is, even when you put a dark mode, how that red, amber, green thing will work. Look at that. So it is a challenge, but I believe that in near future we will be seeing dark mode as well.
Yes.
It is nice now. It has, when we move it to the dark mode as well, it needs to be nice at that moment as well. I hope that makes sense.
Of course.
Let me show you the settings of the sensor here. So when you go to the settings, basically standard stuff. There is a place where we can configure the name, the location. Then we can configure the tag. You remember that we were saying the tag is something that we utilize to logically segregate the sensors inside of the environment. Then we have a mode. Is it going to be wireless or wired? We have a time zone basically to represent the data on the appropriate way. And then we have two settings which are slightly unique to us. One is how many times we want to test each SSID before we jump to another one, which is configured. You remember that we mentioned that we can monitor multiple SSIDs. And also there is a way and settings basically to where we can configure how often to change the MAC address. And why we need this feature.
Favorite feature. My favorite feature.
Yes. Why we need these settings is, as you know, very often when you log in once to the Captive portal, the Captive portal will not be presented to you as a user for next, 3-4 hours, 2 hours, depending on the environment. So in only way that we can force the Wi-Fi network to show us the Captive portal again is basically to change MAC address and to represent ourselves as a new device to that network. On the same page here, these are the settings that we mentioned where you can configure the SSIDs that you want to test, authentication methods. As we said, it's pre-shared key captive and .1x. There is a place where we can configure the exact location, and that is it. It's very simple. That's the reason Marco said it's very intuitive to set up to go through the settings and set up the at least basic stuff. Let me show you other functionalities. This is a place where you can configure the tags. This is the place where you can configure the services. Important settings when we are configuring services is ability to explain to the sensor when something is external or internal. And bear with me here a little bit. I forgot to show you this one. Actually, let me go back and show you like this. there is a way that we can say to the sensor, to one specific SSID, this SSID does not have an internet access. When is this handy? We have multiple customers who are having a big warehouses where that SSID doesn't have an internet access, and simply all the tests related to the internet will fail. So that means that your dashboard will constantly be red. In order to avoid these kind of scenarios, you can actually mention here, do not say that this SSID is without internet access, which basically instructs the sensor and the cloud not to test anything which is related to the internet. Having said that, in services, inside of the settings, there is a place that you can say this service is actually belonging to the internal network and continue testing as well. Again, this is where you want to configure your SharePoint, or maybe in the warehouse environments, there are certain URLs where all the POTS terminals are actually communicating to, and this is exactly the place you want to say, okay, this is the application that I want to follow, and this is an internal application, so switch off everything related to the internet, but continue testing this specific web application. And again, it goes the same with ping test as well, or ICMP, where we will be continuously pinging that specific IP. So you will see, again, is it maybe a networking issue, like losing packets or pings or whatever, or actually something happened in the back end of the application, database that went down, Apache server was broken, or anything similar to that. Guys, you're very quiet. I hope that this makes sense.
Yeah, definitely makes sense.
We are just sitting here stunned.
Oh, thanks.
Stunned. I sound like you said stoned. That's not what we get up to during podcasts.
That's my dodgy accent. But yeah, sometimes we are recording and getting stoned as well, right? With water with lemon.
I believe that I'm the king of dodgy accent here. Definitely on this podcast.
Are you? You are not. Matthew, who is the dodgiest here, me or Nicola?
You, always.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me show you. If we say that the dashboard is actually the brain of the system, the heart of the system would be reports. This is the place where you can actually see as a user in two different ways the data that is being collected. First way to see the data is in tables, and this is quite handy because you can just search visually and find the issue that you were looking for in the last, let's say, 60 minutes, 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, whatever, 30 days. Also, you can export this data in the CSV, so you can go to the Excel sheet and basically play around with what you're looking for. But also, it is quite handy, and I have to say, we developed the APIs from where you can connect to the cloud and fetch this information to your own data lake, or maybe some kind of Splunk, or a tool that you utilize for data processing. And on that way, when you get that data, you can manipulate with the data as much as you want. And also we can help you basically to create the same conclusions that we did in the cloud, and something which we are calling the smart notifications, you can recreate inside of your own environment. When this is handy, we have customers who are MSPs, and they don't want to look at 4 different dashboards from 4 different products, so they set it up their own data lakes, and then just they're fetching the information from all these, and they're manipulating the information as they want. On the other side, if you actually want to utilize our dashboard and the cloud, you can also go through the graphs that we collect. When you go to the graphs, you can always choose which SSID you would like to see and which may be a specific frequency. And at that moment, you will see, one second, you will see the data being represented here. Again, red and amber are the comfort levels in the environment. We have all the tests configured, and so on and so on. All these graphs can also be exported and sent to the customer as a proof, maybe, or when there is a dispute about the SLAs or what exactly happened. This is a quite effective way to prove if there was an issue or there was not an issue, and so on and so on. And of course, as every other cloud console, there is a place where you can contact reach out to the support for additional help, or reach out to the account manager who will help maybe with expansion of the environment or whichever non-technical questions you have about the Cubicon as well. it is good maybe to mention that our when you subscribe to the Cubicon, you do have an access towards something which we are calling a TAM team, technical account managers, which means that there will be one guy inside of the Cubicon team who knows your environment in and out. That is the gentleman who will help you during the onboarding configuration, but also having a quarterly health checks or calls with you to make sure that not only that you purchase the product, but also that the product is utilized on the proper way. You can ask all kinds of questions on these kind of sessions, feature requests or whatever. So we want to make sure that our customers are utilizing the product properly, or if we can help them on any possible way on these kind of quarterly health check sessions as well. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that's great that you've got someone dedicated per customer to understand the environment and can give them that kind of feedback.
Exactly. We believe that's the future, basically, where you have a stack is stack, and always you get your support. That is absolutely fine. People are there are certain SLAs that we work on, and that's absolutely all right. But it's always when you have for any specific question or very hard questions, that you have a guy, an engineer dedicated for you, that you can always reach out and ask, okay, what the hell is this, or why do we not have this or that, and so on. Familiar face when either the issue is happening or when you have specific queries about the technical challenges.
Funny, because everyone else is trying to do the AI thing, like ask the assistant. Sorry, I didn't understand. Do you want to speak to the support?
Support is not available. Please try again tomorrow.
Yeah, we are available within the next few minutes. You are 99th in the queue.
I don't know why you're saying that, Mac. We've got that on our website.
We do.
Yeah, basically this will be the Cubicon in dashboard in 20 minutes or more.
That's been a really good demonstration. Thank you, Nicola, and thank you, Mr. Marco, as well.
Thank you.
All I'd say is that if you listen to this podcast or watched it and you're interested in getting a Cubicon sensor, don't be shy. Reach out to us, reach out to the Cubicon guys, and they can arrange getting you a POC or give you a bit more of an in-depth demo. But even from just having this in my home environment has helped both me and Mac out with our Wi-Fi Ninjas website. So yeah, I would highly recommend using these guys. Very nice as well, both of them. Good.
And the agnostic stuff, it's very important. You don't require anything else. It's just a sensor connected and voila, it's working.
Yep, exactly. I've had it tested to different SSIDs in my environment, to different vendors like Cisco, Meraki, Mist, or just SkyHub. And getting all that telemetry and seeing the differences has been really, I find, interesting. But, if I had customers and environments, this would be really helpful to be able to just log in remotely, especially with COVID and travel restrictions. You can send them a sensor, plug it into the network, log onto the dashboard and see how the environment is performing from a customer's perspective, and then help troubleshoot and fix problems.
And it's not overloaded with stuff that doesn't matter. So it's nice and easy and sleek. Just have a quick glance at the dashboard and you know exactly what is happening in your network using metrics that really are practical.
We couldn't say it better, guys. Yeah.
Thank you. It's actually it's good that you mentioned the COVID-19 situation, actually, because since the beginning of the whole COVID thing, actually, the need for Wi-Fi monitoring is slightly changed, and the people who are approaching us are having slightly different requirements. So what we are seeing is that we are now becoming eyes of the engineers on the field. So there are certain countries where in order to go from state to state, you need to go through the PCR test, and it takes 8 hours from you to reach 200 kilometers away. So what our customers are actually implementing our sensors there, and simply they have real-time visibility across the environment. Also, it is very obvious that how we do business will change, that many people will never go back to the office, or they will go into the shifts, and we are seeing that most of the IT companies that we are working with actually, it's actually happening to them that in the moment of the issue, there is no IT personnel present inside of the organization. And that's exactly where we're having the probe, which is constantly working and collecting the data, makes sense.
Absolutely.
There's one more thing that we didn't mention, I think. The licensing cost do you have like a fixed cost? Do you want to share it here, or is it something that you have to reach out to you to get a price based on the environment you are fitting the sensors with?
Okay, fair question. So let me just explain the whole costing schema maybe a little bit more. It is always subscription based. We never believe in capex. We always say that our sensor is coming, let's say, at free of charge, but basically it's included in the subscription. What the customer is getting is basically a sensor, access to the cloud, support, dedicated time, onboarding time as well, any kind of knowledge base tech. That's all included, and we don't have any software packages inside of the subscription. So whenever we develop something new or we enhance something new, everyone are entitled to it. Related specifically to the cost, it really depends of the environment and the continent where we are. And for those kind of questions, it is best basically to reach out to us. We will route your call to our local representative or us, depending on the place on the earth, and we will always agree about the cost.
Perfect. Well, I think we've probably covered everything we could Cubicon related, unless you guys wanted to share anything else, or Mac, you had any other questions you wanted to ask?
I have, but I won't.
Well, anything from you, Marco or Nicola?
No, I think we are good. Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
It has been an absolute blast and pleasure finally having you on the show. I'm glad that everyone will be able to hear and see how good your product is. And I hope that lots of people now reach out to you to get a POC, get a demo set up and start using Cubicon in the field a lot more.
You will require a call center now to manage the amount of calls after the podcast.
Yeah, send me your CV,
yeah,
Mac, then we'll talk about it.
Exactly, and the number, please.
Well, thank you very much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a good rest of your day. And anyone listening, please reach out to the Cubicon guys. We'll put all of their details in our show notes, so feel free to reach out. Thank you, Mac, as well.
Thanks for having us, guys. Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Pleasure, guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.